Okay, folks, as I've said before in some of these other sections, there's a lot more here than what you will have to deal with on the German fishing class if you are a soldier, dependent, or whatever, taking this through Outdoor Rec. However, a lot of this information I feel is essential, especially if you are visiting Germany and you're getting a tourist license. So like here in rods, the main thing for the class would be the different rods and basic uses and their bend actions. But you wouldn't worry about bank conditions, water, and things like this. We do cover some of that in my class whenever I give the practicals after the test. But it's information that should be need to know. However, it's not considered essential to know to pass and get your German fishing license via Outdoor Rec. That's all. Don't get overwhelmed. Rods. Things to consider when selecting a rod. The combined weight of baits and terminal tackle being used. Different rods are designed for a combination of variations. One major item to be considered is the combined weight of any baits and terminal tackle being used. Using too heavy of this combined weight on the wrong rod can result in rod damage or even breakage. Type of water. This is considered in calculation with also line type and the speed of water currents or surf wave movements. A selection of the wrong rod type can cause excessive bending or even damage to the rod. Bank conditions. Longer rods are normally used in order to clear or cast over bank flora as it may be illegal to remove, cut back, or whatever the flora growth on the water you're at. A shorter rod may be considered if using short casting or the need to undercast or cast under overhanging flora such as trees. Shorter rods are often more manageable when wade, float fishing, kayak angling, or jigging and casting from boats, jetties, or piers. Fish species being angled for. A major or first priority for rod selection, and more important than other considerations, is the type of fish being angled for with the gear. Consider the fish's fighting abilities, the extent of the battle expected to land the fish. In short, do your research before purchasing a rod. Then match or pair your reel to the rod for those specific considerations and requirements. Different rods and basic uses. Bait casting rods are designed mainly for fishing with baits, using with both float, bobber, and bottom presentation techniques. Spinning rods are primarily designed for use with artificial baits and lures. Trolling rods are normally used for trolling or dragging a lure or bait at different depths behind a moving boat. Dip fishing rods or jigging. This is usually a long, lightweight rod used for small or coarse fishing. Fly rods. Fly rods are a total different animal, and it uses specialized spool lines, leaders, and bait lure types. Fly rod lengths can vary for both single and dual hand use. Basic fly rod lengths to consider would be single handheld is 1.8 meters, 5.9 feet, to 2.7 meters, 8.8 feet long. Dual hand can extend from 2.7 meters, 8.85 feet, and longer. Rod bends or actions. This is something that you will be exposed to via the Outdoor Rec exam. Fishing rod bends are rod action describe where the rod flexes. Fast action bends mostly at the tip for sensitivity. Moderate action bends in the top half for versatility. Slow action bends throughout the entire blank for shock absorption, while power refers to its stiffness, light to heavy. These actions are crucial for different techniques, for quick hook sets with fast rods to gentle presentations with slower ones. Rod action, bend. Extra fast action bends primarily at the very tip, offering maximum sensitivity and the fastest hook set, great for jigs and soft plastics, but less forgiving. Fast action bends at the top quarter or third of the rod, providing a great balance of sensitivity, accuracy, and powerful hook sets, making it very versatile for single hook lures. moderate fast, or medium fast action. A blend bending a bit further down than a fast rod, offering good casting distance and accuracy with versatility. Moderate action bends in the middle half of the rod, ideal for casting distances and handling fast-moving baits with treble hooks like crankbaits because it loads up slowly. Slow action bends from near the handle up, flexing the entire rod. Excellent for casting very light lures, finesse fishing, and absorbing Sutton fish runs to prevent line breaks. Equipment. There are 3 types of rod action many anglers need to know as basics. You will see this on the ODR test. The action describes how much of the fishing rod bends when pressure is applied to the tip and the speed at which a rod returns to a straight or neutral position. The material a rod is made from and the method it is constructed will affect its action. Tip action, half parabolic, parabolic action, and such a rod action can be slow, medium fast, or a combination. Extra fast is stiff, bends the least, provides high degree of sensitivity, responsiveness ideal for longer distance cast, fighting large fish, and powerful hook sets. Fast action have a pronounced bend about a quarter of the way down from the tip. They are excellent for jigging and finesse presentations. Moderate fast provides more bend and cushioning than fast action rods, generates a good hook set without ripping the hook out, and they are popular for trolling and fighting bigger fish. Moderate provides decent casting ability for medium to small baits and lures. These rods have a good hook set rating and can be used for fishing smaller species, including trout and panfish. Slow have a low degree of sensitivity and responsiveness. These rods bend the most, can be used for targeting smaller panfish using ultralight powers. Hook set capacity, however, is lower. Equipment. Fishing rod guides can reduce weight and add efficiency. These are often called rod eyelets. There's a plethora of options in guides. Stainless steel, zirconium, titanium, and other metals can be used to create the guides depending on strength and weight reduction required on the rod, not even counting ceramic and other types as well. There are classic guides and newer micro guides and even more advanced guides like microwave guides for funneling line on a spinning reel using a step-down guide and a guide configuration. In other words, bigger loop to little loop. Guides can reduce the weight of a rod or give it more durability. Guides can give more fluid management of your fishing line, and guides should be checked often to make sure the ceramic inserts are not damaged, which can cause line fray that leads to breakoffs. What is a slow action rod good for? Slower actions are good for fishing with baits that have treble hooks or lures that use straight reel for a vibration like crankbaits, spinnerbaits, lipless crankbaits, chatterbaits. The rod transmits the vibration well, loads on the back cast to get an extra long cast, and then loads up well and gives the hooks time to drive in and hook the fish as well. It's not great for baits you have to impart action on with the rod. A slower action is made for rods that you can just straight reel a lure and then lean into the fish when they bite. What is a fast action rod good for? Fast action rods give you enough tip and backbone to impart action on the lure to make it dance and dart or hoop along the bottom. The rod also is usually a bit stiffer overall, so it's a lot better for lures that require a hard hook set to drive a single hook through plastic and into the fish. So faster actions are seen on rods you need to work the bait like topwaters and jerk baits, but also on baits you may shake and hoop and then have to drive the hook on the bite like jigs and worms. Extra fast action rod, what is it good for? This is for baits you want to twitch or for very hard are for very heavy-duty rods that you need maximum power and a quick hook set. So a lot of jerkbait and top water rods have fast actions have extra fast actions, rented lips. You also see this in flipping sticks and big swim bait rods. What is a moderate action rod for? Normally a moderate action rod, or a moderate, told you, rented lips. What is a moderate action rod for? Normally a moderate action is good for reeling baits where you need a bit of backbone and hooking power. So something like a swim jig, chatter rod, and spinnerbait rod will have a moderate action, as well as deep cranking rods. Below you see the basic rods cast. Basically on the left you see the rods. This is the casting weights as determined by the AFTMA, and their equivalency in grams and in pounds. Okay. Remember, the weakest point in your line is always the knot. The strength of the line should be as strong as possible and not any thinner than necessary, as this reduces the chance of breaking the main spool line and losing the fish. Between your main spool line and the hook should be a length of lead line which is weaker than the main spool line to avoid unnecessary line loss and reduces possible damage from excessive line getting tangled up or on or around the fish. An average leader length is typically 30 centimeters. It can be up to 40, 11.8 inches to 200 centimeters, 78.7 inches. Okay. Use of excessive leader material should be avoided whenever possible. Rod power. Power describes how resistant a rod is to a given load. For example, a rod that bends only a little under a 10-pound load has more power than a rod that bends quite a bit under the same load. When you hear an angler say this rod has a ton of backbone, what they're really saying is the rod has a lot of power. There are 7 designations for rod power, denoted as ultralight with power 0, all the way to extra, extra, extra heavy with a power of 7. An extra, extra heavy rod with a lot of backbone is designed to catch larger fish and cast heavy lures, where an ultralight or light power rod is used for targeting smaller fish using lighter lures. If you're just getting started, select your rod power based on the general size of the fish you'll be targeting. For small fish, panfish, etc., go with the lower power. For predatory fish, pike, muskies, stripers, select a rod with heavier power rating. If you're planning on doing some serious saltwater casting from the shore, you'll want a surf fishing rod with extra heavy power or greater. A medium light to medium power fast action rod will typically support a line rating of 6 to 12 pounds and a lure rating of 1/4 to 1 ounce. If you're spooled with a proper line to lure rating, then your rod will work properly. Let us say you're using a rod with a fast action rating, then your rod should bend about 10 to 15% as you retrieve. This leaves you with about 10 to 15% more bend to allow you to sense any bites and set the hook without risk of breaking the main spool line, the leader, or damaging your rod. When you use a line and lure combination that is heavier than the recommended load of your rod action, say using 20-pound kilo with a 2-ounce lure, then your rod will what is called overload. You can then lose the ability to effectively feel the strike, set the hook, and in worst cases scenario you may even damage or break the rod. And or you can snap the entire terminal rig off and it just goes flying off into nowhere and you've lost all your gear. The last thing to consider when selecting a fishing rod is the length. Selecting a good rod length is part science and part personal preference. Over time and many rods you will discover what length and build works best for you and the set angling conditions. Fishing with a longer rod is beneficial if not necessary for distance when casting from shore, especially if you need to get your bait out beyond, say, the surf line. A typical surf rod is going to be 10 to 12 foot long. One of the most popular rod lengths for bass fishing is 6 to 7 long. Shorter rods under this are often used for trout and pan fishing. Again, also a 7 to 12 foot rod is used a lot in Germany when fishing on banks where you have high reeds and such. So you can reach out, cast over that, and place your lure where you want. Because in a lot of places you're not allowed to cut or damage the waterline foliage. And you take a minute, pause it, and you can see all the species and the stuff that is set according to what you should be dealing with. Equipment reels. Okay, the top row is spinning or spin casting reels. These are your old Zipcos, your Zipcos, your closed face, and so on. Lure and bait casting are your opened, or what we used to call thumbbuster reels. The next run down is a conventional surf reel, conventional trolling, and then a spinning. There are many types of spinning reels. These are the one that you see here is an open face spinning reel. Fly reels can either be manual or auto spring. There are also reels that have motors on them for like individuals that may only have one hand to fish with. Then you hit your switch and it will help you reel that fish and fight it in if you don't have a hand to actually do the cranking with. Now, the last one I would suggest that you look for, this is the only type of reel that I use. This is a front-rear dual drag system. You'll notice here it's got a bulb and a flip. Up here it's got a drag. What happens is you set the drag for your line and rod tension. The back one you set much lighter. This is a dial that allows you to set how hard or how easy it is for the fish to strip that line off. You flip your switch. This activates this back drag or clutch. Now when the fish takes the line, instead of dragging your reel off into the water, are you having to take and quickly close the spool or readjust your drag to be able to start reeling the fish in, this back here controls that. So I get a line, the fish starts running. I have just enough here to make sure that it will drag the line but not pull my rod into the water. I lift it up. I crank 2 to 3 times. It sets this. That clicks off. That activates my front drag, and I'm already in the game. This rod I use for everything. Simply the size of the rod and the line and so on that I use in combination with the rod depends on what I'm fishing for. Lightweight, medium, predatory fishing, ocean fishing, deep sea jigging, cod fishing. I use the same reel design, but the reel is based on the size of the reel, the spool head, the amount of line that it carries, and then of course the rod that I pair it with. Equipment, hook sizes. You will see this on the test. Fishing hooks range in a size from number 32 smallest to a 20-aught or 20/0 largest. In between, the scale goes from 32 to 1 and then from 1-aught to 27-aught. As the hook number gets larger, the hook size gets smaller. So a number 30 hook is smaller than a number 18 hook. As the aught gets larger, hook size also gets larger. So a 1-aught is smaller than a 2-aught. For example, a number fish hook, you see the little hashtag in front of it. Okay, for example, a number 4 fish hook is much larger than a number 6 fish hook. even though 6 is greater than 4. Conversely, a 1/0 or 1/0 hook is smaller than a 3/0 or 3/0 hook. Aught fish hooks are always larger than number designated hooks. I don't know why they do it that way, but that's the way that it is. Here you see a basic scale. You'll see at the top row, the hashtag number 1 hook is much larger than the hashtag number 20 hook to the right, while the 9/0 hook on the left is much larger than the 1/0 hook. Okay, I have easily fished down to normally most of my fishing is around the 8 to 12 range, normally 8 to 10, sometimes an 11. But if I'm going for much smaller coarse fish and so on, I went all the way down to a 26. The smallest commercially available hook is a 32. If you're going to be tying a size 32 hook, you better have a microscope. The largest commercially available hook is a 27. Types of hook tips: barbed, macro, barbed, and barbless. There are all sorts of different forms in this. Again, equipment anatomy. You'll see this on the test. There is an eye to the hook. You have the eye, the shank, the bend, the barb, the tip. The point between the tip and the shank is the gap. The point between the bottom of the bend and the tip of the gap is the bite or the throat. There is rounded, which is round, and forged, which is semi-flattened. Some hooks will have bait holder barbs. These do not count as a barb. So if you're on a water and they say barbless hooks only, these do not count as part of the barbing. They're talking about this down here. You have a straight eye where it extends straight forward. You have an upturned eye and a downturned eye. All right, weed guards. This is a clink hammer shank. You'll notice it's bent and wonky. A worm shank. This is for basically for rubber worms and stuff. Brings the worm up and around to hold it into place. These are all of your tips. Different types of eyelets. Now, when we give the class here and I do the practicals, you have to be able to show me that you can tie a spaded hook snell knot. You've got to tie a hook. You got to tie a line using a snell knot onto a spaded hook. You must take and be able to show that you know how to do an improved clinch knot and a uni, or what's known as a blood or universal knot. Treatment of fish. Code of conduct. The privilege of fishing carries with it serious responsibility that should never be ignored. Ignoring it is at your own peril, with possible fines and prison sentences. The angler will always obey the local, state, and country laws. Use the proper equipment for the species being angled for. I know that's misspelled. Respect the rights of property owners. Always treat all anglers or simply bypassers with courtesy and respect. Keep your area clean from all litter and refuse, to include line cuttings, discarded baits, and food items. Avoid any unnecessary pain and suffering to all creatures. Select an appropriate hook, no smaller nor larger than absolutely necessary. Ensure all gear and tackle is free of faults, deficiencies, and is in proper operational condition before you make that first cast. Never use stringers. Use of stringers is strictly prohibited and illegal in Germany. If you want massive fines, possible jail time, and never to be able to fish in Germany again, put fish on a stringer, and that'll do it for you. Use the proper net size for the fish being landed. Typically, the length of the fish denotes the depth of the net and the width across or diameter of the net being used. I always use about a 50 to 60 centimeter net, up to a meter, depending on the fish that I'm going for. I can always land a smaller fish in a larger net. However, it is considered illegal to land a larger fish in a smaller net. I caught a fish. Now what do I do with it? First, you must land the fish in a humane, expedient, and safe manner. You measure and sex the fish to determine if it is to be kept or released. If to be released, you return the fish to the water in a safe, humane, and efficient manner. Fish should never be tossed, thrown, or returned to the water in such a manner as to cause trauma or shock to the fish in question. Some lakes also have a rule. There's a special antibiotic, typically a spray or a gel, that you must treat the hook wound and any other wounds that is found on the fish before releasing it. If to be kept, the fish must immediately be stunned in the proper and approved manner. You got to take a club and whack it over the head. Heart bled, and then clean or ice the animal immediately. Heart bleed means at that point I've stunned him. I take my knife, I run it through the gill openings, I press down, pull back, and cut the heart of the fish so that it bleeds out. Okay. If cleaned on site, no remains or refuse from the cleaning of the fish is to be returned to the water or disposed of in the surrounding local area. If you leave fish guts down or you throw fish and stuff back into the water, fish parts, you've now committed a crime against nature, and those can be severe. Steps of capture. The fish must be humanely and efficiently landed. The fish must then be properly stunned and killed immediately as required per species. High fines, confiscation of gear, license, even possibly the angler's mode of transportation is possible for violations of the law. Okay, there has been cases where they have literally not only confiscated all of the gear, but taken the vehicle as well. They're serious about these laws over here, people. Learning them is really easy. Following them is easy. Going on the temptation to go back to the old standard, the way that we do it in the States, or the way that some of these fishing clubs do it, is tantalizingly too easy and must be avoided at all cost. Fishing rights. Fishing rights in Germany, or in German waters, unlike those in the United States, are held by the state, community, individuals, clubs, or groups of individuals. These rights generally relate to real estate ownership rights. In addition to, there are several fishing rights without. In other words, one person may own the land and one person may own the water. Your fishing water permit allows you use of 1 meter of the bank from the edge of the water back. Some will actually allow 2 meters depending on the situation. The thing to remember is here in Germany there are no open waters. There's no free to fish waters. There's no walking up to a river and dipping a line in. Well, I've got my license. No. There are no open waters. You must go to a tackle shop or to one of the clubs, depending on the area that you're in, pay for your water access, and then you can go fishing. It's an additional step that we typically do not do in the States. But like if I want to go fishing at a state park, I may have to buy my fishing license, but to enter that state park, I've got to pay my entry. And then I can fish at the lake or do whatever. The same thing, basically it's the same way here. I have my license. If I want to fish a water, I go to the local tackle shop. They will either tell me where to get the water permit or they will issue me one. Plain and simple. Okay? Banks. Use of stream and pond banks is necessary while fishing. Although the interests of anglers and persons who own the banks may conflict, it has become a commonly accepted right for anglers to use about 1 meter of the bank without legal permission by the landowners. Anglers have exclusive use of the banks, but they may not use buildings, yards, gardens, forests, culturals, industrial plants, as in industrial plant areas, fenced-in areas, and structures to which entry is forbidden or limited by law, or areas that are marked keep out. Okay? You cannot step over a fence. If that fence goes all the way to the end of the water, whether it's a low little stone fence, as some of these places here have stone fences that date back to Roman era, they may only be knee high or a little bit larger, easily to step over, but that is still a fence. That's still a closed and marked off area. If that goes all the way to the water's edge, you cannot cross that area. Most people will allow, or when they put a fence up in a property, have an opening there where you can come through, or they will have some of them may even have a gate with a sign that says open for anglers. You open, you go in, you close the gate. Okay? But if that goes all the way to the end and there's nothing that says you can enter that area, don't be doing it. It will be trespassing.